The narrative is cracking, and because of this, it looks like the next step is to limit free speech. Marty, I'm still never going to get over that bald face of yours, man. Marty, how are you today?
I actually, you're not the only one having an issue with it. I swear to God, people are making a double take, not taking me seriously. I'm afraid to go in public now, and for real, this happens on Twitter. On Twitter, when so I changed my picture, right? Everybody's like, "Well, you got to change your profile picture. You can't have one with a beard." So I changed it. I didn't know this. So when you change your profile picture or some important part of your Twitter profile, you lose your blue check mark.
Yeah.
And then you get re-verified. And I think Twitter had a hard time verifying me because I got throttled, man. I got throttled. Like, or maybe it's Trudeau's free speech thing. I mean,
yeah, right.
Somebody's, yeah.
Yeah, they tried to verify you. You look like a different person. You don't look like the same person.
No, I don't look like my driver's license. I have a beard on my driver's license. I have a beard on my passport. I'm like, holy shit, I'm screwed right now. How do I prove who I am? I'm still curious. So for the viewers know this, we're doing a show a day early because I'm flying out tomorrow. My first time out of the country. And my boys have bets like, will dad make it through customs or whatever? Like they think I'm on some sort of no-fly list or something like that.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, well, we say a lot of stuff, and well, this is the direction that it's going right now. And I reported on this yesterday, and this is a big issue. I think that whenever they try to pass a bill, they always throw it in some guise of like, it's for this other thing that we're really worried about, not the thing that they're actually trying to push. And this was the headline, of course, from the Globe and Mail. Online harms bill puts onus on tech platforms to remove children, awful pictures of children from the internet. And this is what they're really focusing on. This is the main message that's going out. This isn't what's in the bill. Like this stuff and distributing these things is already illegal. This is already stuff that's controlled by the criminal code. There's all kinds of laws on the books. You can go after people that do that stuff. This is a different story. They're actually going after, well, you guessed it, hate speech. They want to label new kinds of hate speech. I think it was years ago. I was trying to look for the quote, but I think even Justin Trudeau at one point mused with the idea that if you criticized his people kind statement, that was hate speech. Yep. Like it's really so vague. It's disgusting because when you look at it, it's up for interpretation at any point along the way. The point of the legal system is you're supposed to have clear definitions.
This will be the grayest kind of law imaginable. I mean, it'll be so open and it'll be open in the government's favor, right? They'll be able to shut down anybody. I mean, let's step back though. Like, why are they doing this, right? Like, it's got to be a distraction. It's partially a distraction, but it's also, Trudeau. Look at everything that happened this week. The narrative, like so many narratives are crumbling, right? Whether it's climate change and having to rebrand the carbon tax, or the trans narrative is crumbling. Or the woke trans whatever microaggression narrative is.
And we'll get into that because there's a whole bunch to talk on.
We'll get into that. So Trudeau is Trudeau. He needs tools to help him keep spreading his propaganda. And then, you and I and others like us who keep popping up, we're causing him grief, right? I mean, he's constantly trying to say he's the source of information and we're the source of disinformation. Like,
I have to find that clip too. I had it. I'll pull it up. But he literally said that. He literally said that we need to go back to a time when the CBC were the arbiters.
Was the only... Oh yeah. God, he said it so eloquently. Like he misses the days of when he only had to deal with the CBC and the Globe and Mail and a few other, it was much easier for him when he only had 2 or 3 sources of media, because right now having 600 media outlets is causing him grief. Poor Trudeau.
Well, I'm struggling with that clip. I can't find that, but
yeah.
All you need is clips of Justin Trudeau to see that he's not I mean, he's all over the place. I mean, he's a bumbling idiot, and even when he's in international places, he says just the dumbest things. This is a clip that came out just the other day.
And because we know that Russia must win this war. That Ukraine must win this war against Russia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Oh,
yeah, stop
no.
there, right?
Just
I mean,
stop right there.
Whoever the censor wasn't quick enough with the bleep or whatever.
But that's the thing.
Remember
So
the old days when the censor had to listen to you, and as soon as they thought you were going to say the F word, they go beep. Yeah, somebody missed Trudeau saying Russia.
But he's so full of these gaffes that, you know, you go on social media, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. If you look on social media, but then you go and you look at the mainstream media, and they tell you what to believe about it, all of this stuff. And he wants to go back to those days. And this is the kind of bill that would get you back to those days. But to your point, what you were saying, like, is this real? Is this, because it's crazy. Like, it's really crazy. Like, it's going way beyond the pale into like Orwellian stuff. Is this a thing? Now, my thought on this is the slippery slope. I know they call it a fallacy, but this is the inevitability when you have both a bureaucracy run amok and just the inevitability of the incrementalism of, okay, well, that's the next step. You know, we said that hate speech exists. Well, and it's a problem, and we say that it's violence. I guess we need to regulate this, and we need to make laws about it. So I feel that this is more just an eventuality of the rhetoric that's been going on in Ottawa. And eventually people will implement this stuff, even if they're just using it as some narcissistic tactic to get their way in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, I hope that our Senate has enough common sense, right? Maybe the Liberals will introduce this as a bill, and hopefully it doesn't even get past the first reading in the Senate, because to be honest, I don't see the need for it, right? When I look down on the list of things that need to be addressed in this country, out of control immigration, out of control on inflation and stuff like that. I don't hear walking around. I don't hear a lot of people go, "Hey, I'm hit by hate speech every day." I don't, right? Trudeau probably feels like he's hit with hate speech every day, but nobody else. So that's the first thing. I hope that the Senate quashes this. But if they don't, I do get worried, because then everybody can start, you know, I'm already annoyed about things like community notes and whatnot on Twitter and on platforms. Now, what are we going to have? Like a censor that and the fear of censor is that with artificial intelligence, censors become easy, right? I mean, you put certain words, and as soon as the words appear, boom, you're flagged. And censorship is the least of my worries. My real worry is somebody says, "Hey, Marty said something that hurts my feeling," and then you got a cop knocking on your door, and the next thing you know, you're hit with a fine or going to jail. I mean, like, it's a draconian bullshit law that we don't need.
Well, I do see
put your comments down below, folks. This is one of those moments. Like, do you feel hate is a problem in this country, or hate speech that needs to be addressed?
Well, no, I honestly think, like, it's a misnomer. They want to hate speech is a blanket, so you can go after people for whatever you want. Like, that really, at the end of the day, that's what that is. Now, is it just a distraction, or is this actually the tools to be used? If you look at the situation, these conversations, you and I talking about this, Darshan coming on the show was really instrumental at raising a lot of attention at the immigration issue. And these things, because of these conversations we're having, are actually shaping and molding real world policies. And they've been having to draw back on a lot of the stuff that they've been doing. And it's because of the attention that they're getting from people on social media, from people in this new form of media. And they would like to shut that down because they want to go back to the projection of what they want shown in the media.
I don't think the Liberals are using this as a distraction from other things, right? Like, what's their number one headaches right now? It's still ArriveCan, you know, and the war in Ukraine is not popular, so they do have issues. Are they using? If this is what they were going to use to distract from that, that's a bad one. I think they really want this. I actually think they want this. The Liberals want this. Trudeau wants this. He wants to control the narrative because he's losing control of the narrative right now. So he wants to try and regain control of the narrative. He's going to push hard for this, and he's going to use every kind of excuse imaginable, right? Like, we can't have you and I spreading misinformation about climate. You can't have you and I spreading misinformation about COVID, trans people, politics, whatever. So he
The
just
war in
desperately
Ukraine
wants
and where that's
the war
at
in
and what's
Ukraine.
happening.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm getting community noted on all sorts of things like that. They're using every tool at their disposal. When I like last week, I said I talked to a soldier who's just coming back from Ukraine, and he said that the 4 tanks we sent are blown up, and everybody's like, you don't know that. That's not true. That's not possible. They're trying to block me. So he's not distracting, man. Because if he is, it's a weird, he's got better tools to distract with. So no, I think he wants this. He wants this for real. And hopefully hopefully the Senate sees beyond it, because otherwise the average Canadian is naive to this stuff, and that's my fear. Then an average Canadian could be convinced that we need to control speech to save children from pornography or whatever, which is bizarre because at the same time they're doing story time with drag queens at the library. So like, pick a lane.
Yeah, it's really crazy. It's we do live in this clown world, and I what do you even say to
Where
that?
do we go to next? Which clown story do we go to next?
What do we even go to? I mean, well, okay, well, the crazy thing about the drag queens and all of this came up recently. You brought this one up to me, and I didn't know about this, but this was a story of a doctor in Alberta saying that Danielle Smith, her new policies have led to somebody offing themselves.
Somebody committed suicide because of Danielle a couple of weeks ago passed sort of or gave parents regave parents parental rights. And then and that's, to me, that's all it was. It's just giving parents the rights that I think they have. And then somebody said that was somehow or other they translated that into an attack against the trans community. That's bizarre. I don't know how giving rights to parents is an attack on the trans community. And now, yesterday, somebody unfortunately committed suicide, and they blamed it on Danielle's policy,
which is ridiculous because, I mean, it's
a stretch.
This is the thing that it kind of bothers me is about social media, is that people don't actually read the articles. And this is a service that I do, right? Like this is largely what I do on my channel is I actually read the articles, and then I give you a quick synopsis of it, and then give you the article so you can share it around. You can read it yourself, all of that stuff. Of course, go read all these articles. Don't take my word for it. But I always give a synopsis of multiple stories that are going on throughout the day. And the problem is these a lot of writers, especially if they want to write something like this, they realize you're not going to go down and read the rest of the article. You're not going to read it. They just want
the byline's everything, right? Or not the byline, the tagline is everything,
right? Yeah. So what you don't get in this tagline, it says Alberta doctor says province's new policies contributed to suicide of transgendered nephew. Don't mention that nephew would never have fallen under any of these laws regardless, because the person was in their mid-30s.
37 years old. It's actually in the article. So the doctor's nephew is 37 years old. So a 37-year-old person committed suicide. To blame that on something that Danielle did 2 weeks ago, my God. In fact, I think what Danielle did 2 weeks ago is announced that it was coming. It still hasn't even been passed into law. So that's journalism of the worst kind, and if it was an opinion, an op-ed, I'd be okay with it, but it's not an op-ed. That's actually a headline article by CTV. It's just garbage. It's garbage.
It absolutely is garbage, and it really ignores the fact
that us making fun of this. So us making fun of this is something that we could get accused of hate speech, right? We're hateful towards the trans community or towards this person for talking about it. Like that's the slippery slope.
It really is ridiculous, because I do share Danielle Smith's sentiment on this, that when adult people want to go ahead and do this in their lives, you have to respect that. It's their choice. It's what they want to do with their lives. We live in a free society. Be weird. Do whatever you want. It's you ultimately, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to live with the consequences of your own actions.
I don't want to get hung up on this one, but it like last week somebody else brought, people. I love people who do this. So you can't get a credit card until you're 18 years old. So you can't get a credit card until you're 18 years old. That's the law in Canada. So if you wanted to go get a sex change as a 17-year-old, you can't pay with it with a credit card because you're not allowed to get a credit card. So, but you can go get a sex change, and you can't go get a tattoo, and you can't smoke, and you can't drink, but you can go get a sex change. And then people say something like, well, if somebody's young enough to understand the definition of a pronoun, they should be able to change their pronouns. Like, no, we've decided as a society that there are certain things that people don't fully understand until they're 18 years old. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And some people not even at 18. Sometimes it takes a lot longer, and sometimes it never comes. It's just the way it goes for some people out there. But this is it's really crazy that this is the direction that we're going with this. Now, other countries have different directions that they want to go in. And this is a story that I did last night talking about, well, this of course is Javier Milei from Argentina, El Presidente, saying "fuera" to all of the gendered language, all of this inclusive language, they call it inclusive in quotes. And he calls it gender ideology, and he wants rid of it. So a couple of articles that just came out. Milei bans inclusive language in public administration. So he's basically said you can't use the new speak, which is
so he's saying something like, you can't don't be silly and use the term a birthing person. He's saying go back, it's mother, father, forget about this birthing person or this some of the other silly freaking things that are being used these days.
Yes.
Perfect.
And they go over it in the article. Like, so it says, so in Spanish, because in English it's different. We have these other ones. They go as far to say that you have to use the language that came from, there's an order. Hold on. I'll find this. There's two articles. One talks about the military as well, saying that they've banned it from the military. They say, no, we're not doing this. We're not going to allow this. So they said, this led to unofficial designations, because it wasn't an official thing to have these in there. Soldado or whatever for a soldier, and a soldada for a soldier that's a female, instead of using generally just the O instead of the A when there's a mix of people. They wanted to also go along with things like instead of saying amigos for a group of friends
this is what the new progressive language was suggesting. He's saying
that's it. So they're saying what we want to do is say amigas but with an at symbol, or amigas with an X in the middle. It's reminiscent to the Latin X thing. Instead of saying Latino, Latina, they just say Latin X. And it largely was not adopted, but this is something that Milei's brought on to say, you know what, forget it. We're not doing this. It's divisive, and it's causing problems for the armed forces. It's causing problems inside the government, and this is all just a big old waste of time and money. And why don't we just move on and get rid of this gendered language?
No, and he mentions the military and the government. I mean, our military had to go through the same thing, but some of it was reasonable, right? Like there used to be something like saying an airman, and okay, it's okay to say it, but then saying an airwoman didn't sound right. I mean, it's been an airman forever and ever, or an ensign. So some of those terms, people were trying to transform them, and they couldn't come up with a clever way to transform them, and then they get nonsensical. So and Spain was having the same problem, in Argentina. So they're going back to a more sensible solution to it. I'm happy they're doing that. I mean, and I hated the.
There's no shame in calling an airman a woman, airman an airman. You call a woman human a human. I mean,
exactly. But it got egregious when lawmakers were saying, we can't use the word father, mother. We have to use something more inclusive, or blah blah blah. It's like, fuck yeah. Sorry, you're either mother or father, or you're not. Like, it's I mean, nobody wants to call a birthing person. Come on, give me a break.
No, and this gets back to Justin
but
Trudeau.
We're still
right?
doing that in Canada, though. I mean, remember, just like what was it? When was Trudeau in India for the G20? Probably September last year or something like that.
Yeah, just in the
fall. And I remember he came back, the reporter's like, hey, Mr. Trudeau, what was Canada's contribution to the G20? And Trudeau, like, proudly on stage said, like, gender inclusive language. I'm like, oh my God. Like, that's the kind of bullshit that Trudeau pushes. Gender inclusive language.
And it's just, but it's not inclusive. Like, that's the actual funny part about it. If you say human, woman, or not saying woman, you say human, you say person, and instead of saying person, you just include everybody in the old phrase. That instead, what you're doing is you're dividing people up and saying, no, I has to be referred to as this. You have to refer to it as that if that person's this, and you're dividing people up into groups. It's the opposite of inclusion. It's exclusion. And inclusion would be the original old phrases. Like, just say fireman.
Actually, you're reminding me of, this is the kind of stuff that a big story this week. Well, maybe not for everybody, but Joe Rogan had Dr. Phil on his show, and speaking of busting down narratives, Dr. Phil on the Joe Rogan talked about all these kinds of things. I mean, Dr. Phil, he surprised me. In fact, I'd say I would have expected him to be semi-conservative from Texas, but he was more than I thought. And he said those things exactly, like, what were an example? He's like talking about microaggression, like preparing somebody by saying, I'm gonna say something that might aggravate you. It's like that's the opposite of what you do in psychology or in clinical psychiatry. Like, if somebody's easily offended, then you work with them, not the people that offend them. They offend. It's, you choose to be offended. It's not my problem that you choose to be offended. Anyways,
well, no, that's you're right, because he did go on to say about exposure therapy, and it's, you don't affirm people in their fears or phobias and things like that. You expose them, and you do it in a healthy way, but you can't. I think the example he gave was the elevator. Like, if you go into an elevator and you tell them, like, okay, we're going to be going to an elevator, the elevator's coming.
You don't tell them that 3 hours before the elevator ride, they're going to be freaked out for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, so you take them on this path slowly. If people have a phobia, you expose them to the thing that they're afraid of, and you toughen them up. It's about hardening the F up. It really is at the end of the day. It's good.
Because you're scared of elevators doesn't mean I avoid using the word elevator around you. That's insane. That's completely insane, So, and Dr. Phil, speaking of Dr. Phil, did you see the clip where he went on The View? Like, oh my God. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg's head almost, oh, you have it?
I have it right here.
Whoopi, play that one, please.
And the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on. They were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this. So it wasn't, people weren't laying around eating bond, but, well, you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the
look on his face,
the places that they could be sick, because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
That is crazy. And I'm glad that the audience was clapping to that, because they were just trying to backpedal that on him.
Whoopi's like, don't you remember we had she's trying to discredit him completely by saying we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Back on the script.
No. I mean, we hurt children it's one of those things, right? We hurt children disproportionately to save supposedly adults. and it's terrible. It's terrible.
Is that the first time we've ever done that in history, where it was the children that had to sacrifice for the elders?
I was just about that was the next sentence I was going to say. It's supposed to be the other way around. We are supposed to protect the children, like adults, seniors. In throughout history, when there's a danger or something, you protect the freaking children, because that's the next generation. That's what mothers do, fathers do, the village does. You protect the children. You during the war in Europe, you sent the children of the British children to Canada to be protected. If there was Mongolian invaders, you put the children as far behind. But in this last go around, we sacrificed the children.
Well, not in the last go around only. This new go around, we're sacrificing the children at this altar of this new pseudoscience. And Dr. Phil on Joe Rogan had this to say about that. This is crazy.
It's not. I don't think it's appropriate or safe for children, and I think there is a huge body of literature that addresses these issues from end to end. There's not a huge body of literature about the transgender population, and that's the problem. And what literature is out there suggests that you get, and this is what you see from the European countries. They've done study after study from these suppressive hormones compared to doing psychotherapy, and there's not much difference. If you do psychotherapy, you can ease the depression, you can ease the suicidal tendencies with psychotherapy without doing the irreversible things. They say, well, you can reverse those things. No, that's not true. If you arrest the development, that can have ramifications long term. Or at least they can't say it doesn't have ramifications long term.
There's also serious side effects.
Yeah, that's crazy. Serious side effects to a lot of these things.
And just back to what we were talking about earlier, you can't. We block speech. We can't do that. Like, I mean, I always get mad when somebody says follow the science. Man, if you follow the scientific principle, the science requires debate. That's it. It requires debate. I need to hear Dr. Phil. I need to hear Dr. McCullough. I'll hear Dr. Tam. I don't care. I need to hear them all. No, that's how we progress. We need to hear all the opinions, and they get vetted out, and the bad stuff goes and the good stuff, surfaces and prevails. And it's the same thing with any kind of ideas, not just scientific ideas. I mean, Trudeau does. Well, did you see this week? I'm back on Trudeau and back on Ukraine. I mean, what did he say? Like the earlier part of that speech, Trudeau was like, he's standing on stage saying, "Oh, there's a growing movement of authoritarian populism." Like, he's inventing terms, like we can't have authoritarian populism, and it's threatening the very core of democracy. I mean, he just wants to shut down any debate. Like, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, here's his speech on that.
European dynamics, but I will say that in all of our democracies, in every democracy around the world, we are seeing a rising movements of either authoritarian populism or skepticism about democracy itself. And we all need to recommit ourselves to standing up, not just for Ukraine, but through standing up for Ukraine, to the very principles that make our countries strong and free.
It's crazy. He's talking about strong and free, but these are the measures that they're taking. BC Prosecution Services updates hate crime definitions. Now definitions are going to include conversion therapy. So now we all know the old saying for conversion therapy. It was a Christian thing where they tried to pray the gay away from people who were gay. No, but it's colloquially now known, if your kids change their gender at school and you try to convince them otherwise, that's considered conversion therapy. They're talking about making it a hate crime to do that. And then with this new legislation coming federally, it'll now be a crime punishable by jail time. This is really beyond the pale. It's crazy. And he has the gall to go out and say stuff about other countries and what authoritarian populism. Like, what is Justin Trudeau? It was a populist movement because he's got pretty hair and he's been an authoritarian, and that's where we're at right now. It's crazy.
I mean, he's gaslighting us, and some days I think fundamentally he's gaslighting us. Some days I think he believes his own bullshit. I mean, we've talked about this before. I think he believes his own bullshit. I mean, like we need somebody like, if I was on stage with him and he said something like that, I would immediately turn to him and go, "Are you fucking for real? Like, seriously, dude, like, did you just say that? Like, and I'd point out like 15 things right away of how he's being a hypocrite when he says these things. But he goes on, and that's what they do. I mean, they go to these events, they talk to each other, and of course these guys are happy. He's what Trudeau was there with Mr. Bill Blair and Chrystia Freeland with a suitcase with $3 billion. Like, they'll let him talk on stage all day long. He can say whatever he wants, man. Just give us the suitcase full of cash, which and that's a big story today that got kind of buried this week. I mean, what are we up to now? I think we were $9 billion plus another $3 billion. We're $12 billion to Ukraine. I mean, yeah, what's happening in Ukraine is terrible. It's terrible. Like, the Russians are aggressing, but again, it's a complicated story. I mean, both parties aren't innocent here. There were some peace deals struck in 2014. Neither side, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. It's a tragedy. I mean, what are we talking? 500,000 Ukrainian men dead? Like, that's a generation. But
I especially don't like this when some, like, if two groups are spatting and one group says, no, we're not talking about it, and you're not allowed to even look into it, because if you look into it, then you're a propagandist or you're disinformation or all this stuff. Why can't we look into it? There's always nuance to every situation. Anytime two people are fighting, there's always his story, and then somewhere in the middle there's the truth. It's never, nobody's telling the truth on either side, and that's always the case.
Well, and this is a case in point. The Liberals don't want us to question like, we're not allowed to question, have we given too much money? Are we giving it effectively? What's happening? How come you're not talking about peace? I mean, that's the big one. How come nobody's talking about peace? Like, after 2 years, shouldn't there be, in almost every other conflict that ever occurred in the last 30 years that I remember, at some point people would go, okay, whoa, time out. We'd send the UN peacekeepers, something, and try and keep the warring parties apart, and then have peace talks. Man, I've never even heard of anybody suggesting peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. Well, it's not on the agenda.
Tucker Carlson.
Sure, yeah, Tucker. Sorry, I forgot about that one. But yeah, I'm talking Carlson. More locally, right? I mean, even Pierre Poilievre this week, I didn't like his tweet. I didn't like Pierre's tweet. I kind of get that he had to make that tweet because it was the 2-year anniversary, but I didn't like that tweet. He to me, he didn't he's too close to the liberal stance on this one.
He is. What he tweeted out was, it's been 2 years since Ukraine woke up to the evil of an unprovoked full-scale invasion from Vladimir Putin. With unshakable resolve and determination, Ukrainian people have fought back. They haven't given up, and neither will we. Canada will always stand with Ukraine and fight for freedom and democracy against Putin's tyranny. Now, I think Viva Fry said it best there. Yeah. He says, well, it seems like there's minimal difference between Pierre and Justin. At least Pierre didn't end his groveling, war-whoring statement with Slava Ukraini. And yeah. It was disappointing for me to hear stuff. Like, we all know that it was not an unprovoked, evil, unilateral act of aggression. I mean, I don't think anybody believes this at this point. And even the people that say it politically, I don't think they believe that. There's obviously, there was heavy influence by the United States in there. There was conflict going on since before the First World War. I mean, this has a long history. It's not new. None of this is new.
No.
And to see it flare up and then there actually be troops crossing borders, that means it got somewhere bad. It got to a bad position that it's one of the sides chose to do that move. And I don't say that it's a good move, but to label it as like evil and unprovoked is just too black and white. We're the good guys, you're the bad guys, and
And I mean, to me, that statement looks like it could have easily been written by one group and signed by both Pierre and Jagmeet and Trudeau and whatever. Like, there's not a lot of difference, right? I would have liked Pierre to have a slightly different support Ukraine, but maybe have a slightly different message. Because I get nervous of like, they haven't given up and neither will we. That makes me nervous. I mean, because people say, well, it's just a show of support. I'm like, you can't have support without. This isn't a prayer. Like, support means either I send you money, ammunition, people, or bodies. And so I made a tweet on that. People came down on me hard because they saw it as a criticism of Pierre. I'm like, oh, yeah, there you go. Pierre putting on a master class on how to throw an election. I mean, he doesn't need to do this at this point. He doesn't need to do this. I mean, he could have said, yes, today marks a 2-year anniversary, done, move on. But Pierre, if we're about to go into an election, dude, please just mostly stay quiet for now. Don't show your cards. Let Trudeau and Singh self-implode, and then step in at the appropriate moment.
And I'm so confused by this too. Like, we're talking about the party that's running on fiscal responsibility is okay with giving away billions of dollars for a fruitless war in a foreign, faraway place. And I understand that might sound heartless for people who are, of Ukrainian descent in Canada, because ultimately I think Canadians should deal with Canadian issues. And some people are really concerned about that. And I empathize with that. I absolutely do. But at the end of the day, I don't think the Canadian taxpayer should be on the hook for one particular community in our country and their relation to their homeland. Absolutely, I'm fine with anybody who wants to donate their own money and do that, or do fundraising and drives, and people voluntarily do this. But we're talking about, in an unprecedented economic situation in Canadian history, we're doling out tremendous amounts of money that we've
definitely given a disproportionate amount of money to Ukraine compared to other conflicts. We didn't give this kind of, we're not giving this kind of money to Israel. We didn't give this kind of money to either Rwanda or any other ones. I mean, for the most part, we let countries fight their own conflict. This one's different. It's it's different.
It really is different. And
well, now you made me realize, God, we haven't talked about Israel. What's going on with Israel, right? And I mean, there are distractions. Like, there are definitely distractions. I still think that once we start talking about Israel again, the whole conflict will be over. The whole place will have been paved, and it'll be on the list of, it'll be a WestJet destination for all inclusives. Like, I fear that Israel is really pounding the shit out of Gaza right now.
Yeah,
but
I mean, it's tragic, and I don't have a side on that, because I don't have allegiance to either side. My allegiance is completely with Canada, but I obviously I feel for people out there.
Well, I mean, I made a very crude tweet earlier this week where, can I swear on your show? I mean, I made a meme, and I told politicians, just do your fucking job. Like, they're not doing their jobs right now. They're not doing their jobs. I talk to people. I look around, man. It's the same things. It's unemployment. It's inflation. It's the cost of living. It's all of those things. I mean, every day my wife goes and does groceries and comes back, and she's just mad. It's like, yeah, honey, it's expensive. Mm-hmm. When's the next interest rate? I'm going to miss it. I'm going to be gone. You keep an eye. Text me.
I will. I will be keeping an eye on that. But I want to get back to this, because there was a tweet that you translated for somebody else. There was a French tweet that went out, and I thought this made the most sense, actually. So this is a translated tweet from Guillaume Como.
Guillaume Como. Guillaume's a very nice guy. I've been on spaces with Guillaume.
Yeah, apologies, Guillaume. I'm terrible at pronouncing names.
It's a tough name even for a Frenchman to
pronounce. Okay, there you go. But you translated it for him. You said, if you followed Pierre before Trudeau became toxic waste, you'll know that it only takes comfortable positions, according to the polls. If I wanted to influence him, despite the predetermined decision to vote for him, I would openly take a position for the PPC all the way to the voting booth. He's a comfort politician. And this kind of gets into some of the sentiment that I've said about him. He is riding a wave, and if your goal is to shape the culture, this is the kind of politician you want. You don't want someone who's an ideologue like Trudeau in government, because he doesn't care what the populace wants. He's gonna Pierre Poilievre. He's gonna go along with what the population say, fundamentally. And I agree with this sentiment. I think that, I don't know if I agree with the whole like lead the PPC on to think that they're gonna get voted in, but if political pressure is strong enough, these kinds of politicians, they'll bend to it. Like, we don't have a Javier Milei waiting in the wind. We don't have,
or a Trump, or
we don't have any of them. No. And Maxime Bernier, I mean, I've you know, nice guy and all. I don't think he's just another politician in my eyes too. I mean, he makes a lot of promises that look insincere and that he won't be able to keep. So I kind of agree with the sentiment to keep the pressure on the Conservatives. Like, do not relent. Keep that pressure on. If you don't like something they say, don't apologize for them. Give them hell for it.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't think we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna move Pierre completely to the right as far as some. Well, so some people read that tweet and say you're compromising if you use that approach, that you're not totally true to your values, because they'll say, well, if your values are PPC, you should vote for PPC. I'm like, yeah. You got to balance values. You got to balance moving forward. You got to balance getting elected. I mean, holding true to your values and laying dead on the beach is useless some days. Well, most days, always. So, so yeah, because people have said that to me, Marty, because the people feel that I'm truly I should be a PPCer guy. You probably are too. Like we're very libertarian. So people go, well, if you're libertarian, then you should be with Max. I'm like, yeah, but I want to win. And being in the backbench or being in the freaking totally far corner of the House of Commons doesn't help. So yeah, it's challenging. It's challenging. I mean, do I think Pierre is the perfect savior for us? No, but he's a hell of a lot better than Trudeau right now.
Well, he's a hell of a lot more electable. I mean, he does know how to say the things. He knows how to react to when reporters try to do that. And of course, the reporters, they want to compare him to Trump because he's good at those things. But that's about the only thing that he has comparable to Trump. I mean, he's not very much like Trump at all. In fact, I would prefer Trump to Pierre Poilievre.
Would you?
But I would.
Yeah.
Okay, so first and foremost point, first United States president in almost a century, no new wars.
Right. Oh, no. I mean, no new wars, huge amounts of peace agreements, visited North Korea. Like his record speaks for itself, man. He did some great things. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
And he will again when he gets elected.
Yeah. What was I going to say? You had me. Oh, I know what. Yeah. Like, I said, we were talking about the election. Unfortunately, based on the events that occurred this week, it looks like we might have to wait a little bit longer for an election. I was so hoping that Jagmeet would finally be a man, but I guess I got to give up. Jagmeet is not a man of honor, and he will never ever do the right thing. He will never do the right thing. So Jagmeet is agreed to formally prop the Liberals for a little bit longer, I guess.
That's it. The Liberal and NDP still have a reason to work together. Are they good enough? Asks the CBC. The CBC has even had enough of it. They're ready to move on. Canada's ready to move on. It's unbelievable that they think that this is an okay thing to do. How do they get away with this? Normally, minority governments don't last that long. Normally, it goes to a vote of non-confidence before.
It's supposed to be 2.5 years max, and this one's already. He's had 2 that beat that. Oh no, they're masters at politics. I mean, this one's upsetting too because Jagmeet is pretending that the CBC. I watched that CBC interview, and she said, for all intents purposes, you're propping up the government. and the government's a shit show right now, and Canadians are mad. So how do you address that to Canadians? And he just goes on. It's like, well, I'm doing good. It's like, what's the good you're doing? I brought in dental care for 87-year-olds. I'm bringing in free insulin and birth control for a very small segment of the population. Oh, okay, great. That's fantastic. Good job. Like, he claims to be using his power to do good. What good have you done, Jagmeet? What good have you done? Like
nothing. And even someone who believes in socialism and those things would say, what, 80-year-olds really? And people in the industry are worried about it now, and apparently there's a bunch of hiccups because of it, and
it's even worse. In fact, it's not even a solution, right? I've listened to a lot of talk shows that Pharmacare is, again, it's not a problem in this country. Like about 80% of Canadians are covered in some form of Pharmacare through work, and then another chunk are provided by their governments. Like here in Alberta, if you're a senior with lower means, if you qualify for a GST rebate, you're gonna get free drugs and prescription glasses. So like it's not a big problem.
You know who this is gonna hurt the most? So in the United States, I know there's a big problem with Pharmacare coverage. So when it comes to Pharmacare coverage, the people that get hurt the most because of it are lower income earners in entry level positions. What they end up suffering from is they work at a place like Walmart or some big box whatever, and if they get a full 40 hours a week, they're guaranteed that they get a thing through their job, benefits through their job, and that's something that it's been negotiated with contracts or whatever over time. Now, that being said, if the company doesn't employ them full time, they made up this whole new peak time thing where you're only allowed to do 36 hours a week. It's just enough to kind of live on, but
one of those.
But then you're eligible for Pharmacare, and they don't have to get you the things. So it's just keeping you within that eligibility, and it's a poverty trap. It sucks. I know it's like all the best intentions on these people that draft this stuff, but this is what the eventuality of it is.
It sucks that way, and then another way it sucks is New Zealand did this, right? New Zealand, the Pharmacare, so then the government becomes the largest buyer of drugs, not individual insurance providers. And when the government does it to keep the cost down, they have these they basically go with generic drugs, and then the really top of the line good drugs, those companies don't even want to sell to the government. So New Zealand brags about, oh yeah, we got cheaper drugs, right? But it's like, yeah, but you got cheaper. Either you're getting a generic drugs, or the only drugs that manufacturers will sell to you is a 10-year-old technology. They're not, if you're somebody in New Zealand with MS or some really rare disease where you need that state-of-the-art drug, you're not going to get it because the drug manufacturers won't sell. So yeah, it's got. Weird topic. Jagmeet Todd.
It's always said the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and
bingo.
I think the difference here is I don't attribute my political opponents' methods to malice. I think it's just they're mistaken. I don't think socialists are thinking things through. They have really good intentions, but they don't understand economics, and it can be detrimental to the entire society based on that.
Oh well, I'm gonna have to run soon because I'm flying out. But a couple of good news stories here that we'll have to watch in the coming months. The NDP race for the new leadership to replace Rachel Notley. It's gonna be fun to watch in Alberta. So the new candidates are presenting themselves. Oh my God. I'll take any of them as leaders so far because they're all precious. Like Sarah, we'll talk about them in the coming weeks.
Okay. I saw a few of them. I saw the one with the curly hair.
Yeah, Sarah like Hoffman, obviously, right?
Is that the Gary Busey one?
No, she's not running.
Oh,
that's Janice Irwin. No, she's not running. But Sarah Hoffman, our former health minister, is running.
I saw the like the squiggly puff one, the one that looks like Kirby.
Yeah, that's Sarah Hoffman, and she did a funny video like I'm fat and sassy or whatever. I'm like, oh my
All
god.
right, enjoy that.
And then we got Gil McGowan's going to run. Anyways, that's and then the other good news story that I'm really happy about right now, and I went and helped with it the other day, is that petition to recall Mayor Gondek. Man, that's going well. That's going
Really
well. Like it's already, we need 500,000 signatures to recall it. We'll never get to 500,000, but we're already at 100,000 handwritten signatures.
Oh, I saw 50,000. I didn't know it jumped that much already.
And 100,000 signatures, and you need 140. She got 147. I already don't know how. Like, when we put 100,000 signatures in front of council, what's she gonna say? Oh, that doesn't mean anything. It's like, really? It doesn't mean anything. It's like, it's almost as many people. I think we're going to get to 147. I mean, we have a whole other month, so we're going to get to 147.
Oh, like that's hilarious.
It's just, yeah. No, it's so easy. You print the form, you go stand in front of it's one of those, like, it's actually easy. I did it for an afternoon. It's very easy. As soon as you stand there saying, sign the petition to get rid of the mayor, everybody lines up, man. You get a lineup of like 20 people. It's way easier than going door knocking for a candidate. It's really fun.
I think the last one we'll end it off on is a clip that was going viral today on Twitter. Now, a lot of people claiming that this is a real clip. I hate to burst anybody's bubble. Fake news, big time.
Yeah.
You know exactly what clip I'm talking about, don't you?
Well, that would be me. Is that the one where I said if I heard him saying, I'd be saying, is that the one, the fake one of Trudeau? Oh, no, different one. Okay, I got another one, but we'll do.
Okay, this is a different one. This is one where
I posted this one a week ago.
Oh, this is a week old?
No, it's making the rounds now, but it's at least a week old. I posted that a week ago.
Oh, okay. It was not hard to just verify that this is fake.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's fake.
So, I mean, in the, let's just give a premise to it. This person says, holy moly, Trudeau's daughter is drunk, telling everyone that will listen, that Justin Trudeau is trying to take all your money and that you should vote for Pierre. Even Trudeau's kid thinks he's an effing loser. Did Trudeau set up made for himself? Anyway, it's making the rounds. Just so everybody knows, this is not Justin Trudeau's daughter in this clip.
Okay, yeah.
That's impressive. It was thank you.
Yes, my dad's Justin Trudeau.
What's your name?
He's trying to take all of your money. Don't vote for the Liberal Party. Vote for a conservative. Guys, my dad's Justin Trudeau. He's trying to take your money to take me to Jamaica.
That's pretty funny, though.
I don't think, but it's not far-fetched.
Yeah.
I mean,
she created a whole audience in McDonald's.
I think that's something his daughter would do. I do. I think that's something his daughter would do.
But see,
except
the reality is his daughter's 15 years old. Didn't drop out of the U of T, which was something this lady claimed. All of that stuff.
And I don't think his kids, like, he's protected when he walks around, but I imagine even his kids are protected too.
Oh,
right?
yeah. I mean, no, you never see a scene
yeah.
like this. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of gullibles out there that bought into it and even spreading it around.
No, the clip I liked that I thought you were going to bring up is it's the deep fake where Trudeau was in Poland talking about, we can't let Russia win the war in Ukraine. And then the guy who he's talking to is a different person. It's a commentator who superimposed himself on there, and he's basically telling you, Trudeau, you're full of shit. Find that clip, and we'll end on that one. I don't
even know what to look for.
It'll take me to. Let me put it to the top of my timeline because I shared it earlier today. Right now, here, let me pin it.
As soon as it's pinned, it's up. I'll have it.
It's pinned to my profile to the top. So find that one, play that one for our audience one last time. It just shows how deep these deep fakes can be.
Oh, this guy, he's a comedian. He does a lot of these.
Yeah, so this is what I was saying earlier. If I was sitting across Trudeau, I would be this guy. I would call Trudeau's bullshit. So that's what, we want somebody
in every democracy around the world, we are seeing a rising
he had a reverb like it's in a big stadium.
Of skepticism about democracy itself. Citizens cannot take their democracies for granted. And that means standing for democracy against authoritarianism in favor of the peace and prosperity that ensures a better future for everyone.
I'm sorry, but I'm not sure what democracy you're talking about, since you were so worried about people being skeptic about it. Because as far as reality is concerned, your government and many other democratic governments are controlling the flow of information on what their citizens can and cannot know about. You're expanding government regulation of online speech. You frame people protesting your government and your mandates as violent extremists. You froze their bank account. I mean, you basically call every criticism against you hate and hate speech. None of that is democracy. That's authoritarianism 101. So again, I'm not sure what the fuck you're talking about.
Lost signal. I love it. That guy's
it's
great.
True, right? I mean,
that guy's
like
fantastic.
Trudeau's like, yeah, you know, governments are populists or whatever. The public is moving towards authoritarian populism. Fuck, dude, you're the biggest authoritarian out there.
Big time.
Everybody's made fun of him. Like Joe Rogan calls him that.
The creepy dictator. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like he's, you know, oh my God. Jesus.
All right, Marty. When you're not in Mexico, where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter and Marty Up North on Facebook. Yeah, so we're going to miss next week. I'm going to take a break, folks. I'm going to take a break. Well, there's no Wi-Fi where I'm going. So Marty will be offline for a week. Maybe it'll help me get re-throttled because I am being throttled right now. So we can't do next week, but we'll do the weekend. Unless you want to do Friday next week or whatever. But I come back. I can't remember. I come back Wednesday evening late. So Thursday, if you want to do something, reach out on Thursday.
Yeah, maybe next week, Friday, but we'll see. I have to check my schedule because there's a lineup of guests. I don't know if I have one scheduled for next Friday. So
we'll do our next week after. Maybe I'll try and do what I did last time when I go on my hikes in the summer and try to ignore everything that's going on and come back and get a reaction video from Marty.
Yeah. Oh man, that'll be fun. All right.
Right on, bud. Yep.
Doing it again.
All right. Cheers, everyone.